Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Because I've Healed. I am, like every week, just thrilled that you are here and appreciate you taking the time to listen and to engage with me on this platform. This week, I want to talk to you about getting everything that I said that I wanted. I am working with a friend of mine, a new friend of mine here in Lisbon, who happens to be a branding photographer and retreat photographer and photographer for women and for women who have spiritual healing businesses that we met up here in Lisbon and totally connected. And so now she's helping me to make some branding videos for my business. And she was asking me, and also as I am selling and in the middle of the launch for my Intuitive Connection through Ancestral Healing group program, people have been asking, what is the result of connecting to my intuition and doing ancestral healing? And I felt like I couldn't answer because I felt like my life was boring. So when people would say, "Oh, you just need to make content around what you do. Show when you're at a cafe." I'm like, "I don't go to cafes." Show when you go to a museum in Lisbon. I'm like, yeah, if I went to a museum, I'd probably take a picture, right? And I was telling myself this story that my life was so boring and that I don't know if I can sell this intuitive connection through ancestral healing program because what do I have to show? I'm not in a hot air balloon. I'm not taking trips around the world. I'm not doing all of these things. And it really kind of threw me for a loop. And I thought, well, what am I doing? Because I don't feel bad about it, but I didn't know how to communicate to you all what the benefit was of diving into your intuition and doing some ancestral healing. But then finally it clicked. I figured it out and I cannot wait to tell you what it is just as soon as you hear the intro. Welcome to Because I've Healed, the podcast where we talk about shaking the chains of expectations placed on us by the world. My name is Asha Wilkerson, and I'm a former high achieving attorney and college professor turned healing focused life coach for Black women. Each week, I'm bringing you a life lesson that started with healing. Not only will I explain the chains I was able to break, but also the success I experienced after. Let's get to healing. All right, let me get right to it so I don't waste your time. I realized that I actually am living and experiencing everything that I have been writing in my journal for the past 3 or 4 years. Even though I jokingly say that my life is boring right now because I'm not going to cafes to co work, I'm not taking trips around the world, I'm not doing all these new and exciting things. Most of the time, I'm actually sitting in my apartment in Lisbon on my couch that I love that has a little chaise lounge, which means that I can put my feet up, sit back, and have a good time. And I realize that is the life. This is the life that I wanted. This is the life that I prayed for. This is the life that I worked really hard to get. And I didn't really even recognize it when it got here because I didn't feel like it was Instagram worthy. And not because it's not an achievement, but when we see things on Instagram, it's always flashy or it's someone's Stripe notification of how much money they're making, or I did this healing ceremony in the jungles of Peru and I met a shaman and now I'm a shaman and all of that stuff, right? But I want to tell you that my dreams have come true and that when you connect to your own intuition and do your own ancestral healing, your dreams will come true too. And they may not look like mine. So, what did I actually want? I would journal every morning about how I want to wake up without an alarm clock. I want to wake up in a space that has white walls and has lots of natural light. I want to make my cup of coffee in the morning and I want to get up and look outside at the water. I do all of that, but I don't have a view of the water yet. But when I move, I will. That's what's on my list of requirements for the next apartment that I move to or house that I move to. I also said that I didn't want to be in a rush. I said that I wanted to have the time to take care of myself in the mornings, that I wanted to be able to journal, to take as long as I need to be able to get up and get out of the house. I wanted to exercise regularly, and I didn't want to have to rush to sit down at the computer to get back to work. I wanted to be in a place that I loved so that I was comfortable being at home. I wanted my place of home to really feel like rest and to feel comfortable. Is there anything else that I said that I wanted? I was looking for old journal entries, but I don't have the journals with me here in Lisbon. But I think that that covers what I said that I wanted. And I have it. I wake up most mornings without an alarm clock. I take my time to get up and journal. I live in a beautiful space, and I'm reminded by how beautiful this space is because my friend keeps taking pictures from different places in the apartment. And I'm like, oh, that's a beautiful, oh, that's my space? Oh, that's my space. I don't even see it anymore, right? I've kind of become blind to it. So I appreciate her and her angle and her photographer's eye. I work out 3 to 5 times a week. I would say 3 to 4 times a week. My goal is to really get 4 times a week, but I have been able to hire a personal trainer, and then I go to reformer Pilates a couple times a week as well. I do not rush. There is no such thing as rush for me anymore in Lisbon because I have been able to intentionally set my schedule so that there's space in between obligations and that there's lots of downtime. I also said that I wanted to be able to study and read the self help books and the spirituality books and to have it be a part of the preparation for the work that I do instead of feeling like I'm reading these books on the side because the work that I get paid for is something different. So, really, when I slow down and think about it, I have gotten everything that I have said that I wanted. Now, how does this connect to intuition and ancestral healing? Before I left the US, I was working as a full time community college professor. I was running a paralegal program. I was a department chair and all that good stuff, right? I had my position, I had earned tenure, which meant that I could not be fired, but it came with a lot of responsibility. And eventually, I just began to get burned out, and the work was no longer aligned with what I wanted to do. Before that, I was a full time practicing attorney in California and had spent the years and the money to go to law school and to become an attorney and had started to make a name for myself as well, but also at some point got burned out and misaligned with that kind of a career. So it took a lot of effort, maybe intentionality. Intentionality is a better word. And it took a lot of intentionality for me to break from both of those identities and both of those fields of work because they were highly rewarding. They were rewarding with money, but also status in a sense, job security, respect. There was a sense of keeping up with my colleagues with whom I had graduated from law school. There was a sense of being a pioneer as an educator at a community college and being able to impact the community of students, but also make an impact in the local Sacramento community. There were things about what I was doing that felt really, really good. But at some point, I didn't feel so good. And I realized that I was just out of alignment, that there was something else that I was being called to do. Now, it made no logical sense why I would leave a tenured position, why I would leave my home in California where I had lived for almost 20 years, why I would move further away from my mom, who lives in Portland, Oregon, why I would leave my community behind in California and job security. Remember, I couldn't get fired with this tenured position. Why would I leave that to go pursue a different life, a life that I didn't know exactly what it would look like in a whole other country? I was able to do it because I got connected or reconnected with my intuition, and my intuition told me I needed to make a change because if I stayed in the same position, I was going to have some mental health consequences or some yeah, probably mental health consequences that I didn't want to have to endure. I knew that it was taxing on me in a way that would just kind of suck my soul, not because the work was bad, but because it was misaligned. And I had to get really sure in my own internal connection with my intuition to even take the first couple of steps of exploring what a life outside of California, what a life outside of law, what a life outside of teaching could look like. My family members have never done anything like this. My family members have been on the front lines of the civil rights movement, fighting for the job opportunities that I have been able to take advantage of. People of color typically don't just leave this kind of security and go follow their dreams or do what's best for them. We're typically either supporting families or feeling like we don't have enough security to be able to do something different, or we are the hope and the inspiration. We are the culmination, the manifestation of our family sacrifices. And to step away from that to do something that they don't necessarily value is a big ask of ourselves. But because I had gotten in touch with my intuition and my inner knowing, I knew and I trusted that I had to do something different and that whatever was coming was going to be right for me. Now, how does the ancestral healing part come into it? It comes into it because we are conditioned in America to never rest. The country is capitalistic. If you're brown, you've played your part in building up America's economy. I never saw my parents really rest. And if they did rest, that word lazy would always slip in, whether it was themselves saying, "Oh, I'm being lazy today. It's a Sunday, they're resting." Or if a parent would say, "Oh, don't be lazy, get up and do XYZ." I also became an entrepreneur in the age where people were saying, if you're an entrepreneur and you're not working 20 hours a day, you're not doing it right. You don't want it bad enough. And those kinds of things stuck into my mind. So, anyway, we have a challenging relationship with rest. But once I got connected to my ancestors, and getting connected to my intuition helped me to open the door to the ancestral connection because I was able to distinguish what was my thought, what was my intuition, and what did I feel was coming from an energy source outside of that? How did I feel? What was I hearing? What was I sensing when I was thinking about my ancestors and their various journeys? And I realized that my ancestors' wildest dream is not for me to be in a corporate job. It's not for me to be in a tenured job. It's not for me to be in a house that's super fancy. Those things may come, but their wildest dream for me is to be free in the world wherever I want to be free mentally from the constraints that are oppressive and repressive and hold me back, to be free emotionally to express and to show up however I want to, and to be free anywhere in this world doing whatever I want, to be free of restraints, to be free of restrictions, just to be a human that is able to exist. And once I was able to connect myself to that vision that I knew that my ancestors had for me, making the decision to take off and to leave became easier and easier because I was trusting this guidance that I had been able to connect to spiritually and internally. And even though it sounded different from the guidance of my parents, the guidance of my community, the guidance of American wisdom, I knew that it was right for me. I knew that it was right for me. And I knew that the chatter that I was hearing around my decisions was not meant for me. My path was something different. So, if I can encourage you to do one thing this week, two things. One, it's going to be to join me for the group program that starts on Saturday, January 25th, for the Intuitive Connection Through Ancestral Healing group program. I am going to teach you how to develop and expand your intuition so you can listen to it and begin to make decisions that are aligned with your inner knowing and your inner wisdom. You will become an intuitive woman who no longer second guesses herself, but feels comfortable and confident making the decisions that are right for her. You will become an intuitive woman who becomes connected to her ancestors so that she can always have a bead, have a line to the greatest source of wisdom and knowledge that has come before you and is directly tied to you so that you can make the decisions that are right for you and right for the people around you. So that's request number one to join this program. You can join it in the show notes or go to ashawilkerson.com/group. The second request for you is if you are not joining this program, to think about joining, but also to think about how you can expand your connection to your intuition. As a woman and as a woman of color, this is the key. This is the game changer. We have so much that is put on us, so many expectations, so many rules, so many regulations on how we can show up, what we can look like, what we can do, what our parents expect from us, what our family expects of us, what responsibilities we carry. But I really want for you to get in touch with yourself. to tap into your intuition so you can start making decisions that are good, great, the best for you. And with that, the door to your ancestors, the connection you have to your ancestors will be able to open. And I promise, once that opens, you will be able to go back through and heal old generational patterns. Why? Because you will begin to realize that the people you have in contact, or the people that you are in contact with on this earth, parts of them may be unhealed. But if you can connect far enough back into your ancestral lineage, you can get to that healed person or that healed energy, that healed spirit who can give you the wisdom that will be relevant for you today, right now. In some ways, my act of leaving the US is healing my lineage. My recent lineage has had to fight for equality in the United States, has been subjected to discrimination and jail time for going against the segregation laws. My mom was arrested in Mississippi as a teenager for sitting on a whites only bench. So this stuff isn't that far away in our history in America, but also in our memory as people living in this time. But when I was able to go back and to connect to a vision from an ancestor that had come before this most recent time, the wisdom that I got was not based on the present circumstances, but it was the wisdom or the wish that my ancestors have for me in general. So present advice, present vision was for me to go to law school. There was no pressure, but for me to get an education, probably to get a graduate degree, to get a good job, and to work there until I earned enough money to retire and then to live happily ever after. That was a means to an end, but the end kind of got lost, or the means are able to change now. Maybe the end was the same. It was always about freedom, but the tools that we have been using recently don't always lead to freedom. Sometimes they feel like more restriction. And that's why it's really important for you to connect with your ancestors and your ancestral lineage so you can really understand what it is that they want for you. How is it that they want to connect with you so you can have that direct line of communication that surpasses the present circumstances. So again, 2 requests this week. 1, for you to look at and join the Intuitive Connection through Ancestral Healing Group program. The last day to sign up is Friday, January 24th, because we start Saturday, January 25th. And I want you to think about how you can connect to your ancestors more regularly. How can you expand that connection? If it's not in this group program, what else can you do to open that door so then you can begin to do some ancestral healing and connection? All right, that is my quick podcast for this week. I'm going to do my best to come back more regularly and to share some things with you. If you have any questions, please find me on Instagram at Asha Wilkerson ESQ and send me a message and I will get right back to you. All right, talk to you later. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the podcast. The best way to keep in touch is to go to my website, ashawilkerson.com, and join my email list. If you'd like more information about this episode that you just listened to, head to the show notes and you'll find all the details and all the links. See you next week.